Hello and welcome to lesson 91 of the Learning Guitar series. In this lesson we're going to discuss the Phrygian dominant mode, which is the fifth degree of the harmonic minor modes. Let's have a look at the PDF that comes with this lesson and let's dig into it. So the Phrygian dominant mode, the fifth mode of harmonic minor scale, is a musical scale distinguished by its exotic, somehow Eastern type of sound. Structurally, it can be derived by starting from the fifth degree of the harmonic minor scale. In terms of intervals, the Phrygian dominant scale consists of 1, flat 2, 3, 4, 5, flat 6, and flat 7. This differs from the natural Phrygian mode, so here we're talking about the third mode of the major modes, by having a major third instead of a minor third, and feature the combination of a flattened second and a major third, an unusual but very musical measure. So basically what we're looking at, so if we look at the Phrygian mode, so the third degree of the major modes, we see that we have a scale that goes 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and then again root to note. And because it contains the 1, flat 3, 5 arpeggio, we know that we apply it to a minor type of chords. In fact, if I freeze, say, a G minor, this would be a good scale that goes with it. It's got a very peculiar and interesting sound. What we're dealing with in this case instead is simply like the third minor is raised to become a third major. So now the scale, which becomes this, 1, flat 2, major 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and then root note. Now it contains the arpeggio 1, 3, 5, not only, and flat 7, which changes completely the kind of chord we're applying it to. Because we have 1, 3, 5, flat 7, now we apply it to major dominant 7 chords. So in this case, G7. And you can hear this kind of, I call it Eastern on the PDF, but it's a very interesting sound. Let's keep looking at the PDF. It also provides the tension resolution necessary for minor key cadences, especially in classical flamenco and jazz contests. So what this refers to, and this is going to be very important for jazz studies in particular, is the fact that being the fifth degree of the harmonic minor and being a dominant chord, it tends to resolve into the one chord of harmonic minor, which is a minor chord. And in fact, when we will do the minor 2-5-1, so which derives from the minor harmonic, chord number 2 is going to be off diminished, and we looked at it in the past. Chord number 5 is dominant, but in this case is Phrygian dominant, and then chord number 1 is minor. So in other words, you would have, say, if we're looking at C minor harmonic or C as chord number 1, we would have chord number 2 as a D off diminished, G7 as chord number 5, and then C minor as chord number 1. So this is an important cadenza, like a minor 5-1. And if I loop this, now we have minor harmonic, Phrygian dominant, and we can think of the C as a Aeolian or harmonic minor. Here is Phrygian dominant. Let's look back at the PDF. Improvisation and composition often center around the one chord, generally in the case of the major mode is major, and treats the flattened second degree as a prominent tension tone, and as a result it's not uncommon to find this mode applied to chord progression such, for example, And here is 3 chord progression that you can actually try. So 1, flat 2, 1, or the 1, flat 7, flat 6, flat 7, 1, 1, 4, flat 2, 1. And in that sense, what we're doing here is applying the Phrygian dominant to more modern progressions, which are not necessarily jazz. So, for example, I'll give you an example of the first one. Okay, so you would have this kind of progression, which I'm sure you heard it maybe in flamenco. And this is like definitely Phrygian dominant territory. I'll play it for you. This is G, Phrygian dominant. Another example mentioned was, for example, like 1, flat 7. So again, if we're looking at the key of G, so 1 would be G, the flat 7 would be F. Then we have a flat 6, which would be E flat. And then back to flat 7, which would be F, and then back to G. In this case, because we're looking at the minor harmonic, chord number 7 is minor, so we would have F minor. Let me play this for you. And the third example had a 1-4, flat 2, 1 kind of movement, where now you have chord number 1 obviously is still G. Chord number 4 in this case would be C minor, and flat 2 we know is A flat. So you would have this kind of sound. Let's go back to our PDF. So, of course, being the 5th degree of the harmonic minor modes, it also has an important role in terms of being the tension point within a minor 2-5-1, and we looked at that. Since it is a widely used mode in jazz and fusion when resolving over minor chords. Now, let's have a look at the vertical structure of the mode, so the modular arpeggio, so to derive all the chords within it. And again, if this is the horizontal structure of the scale, this is the vertical structure. So in this case, you would have 1, major 3, 5, flat 7, flat 9, 11, and flat 13. In other words, if the scale moves this in this manner, again, we're working in the key of G. Now what we're looking at is the modular arpeggio, so 1, 3, 5, flat 7, flat 9, 11, flat 13, 1. So you have this kind of. And if we execute this in, say, group of 4 notes, now we derive all the chords within. So if I perform it this way, this is obviously G7. This is D diminished. Now you have, B diminished, and now you have D half diminished. Now you have F minor. And this is B flat, major 7. And we could continue. And in fact, if you look at the PDF, the second part explains this in even more detail. Here is the group of 4 notes. And in fact, you have G7, B diminished, D half diminished, F minor, A flat major, then C major, C minor major 7, and then E flat major 7 sharp 5. And here in the PDF already talks about the backing tracks which are associated with this lesson. And as you will see with the backing track, which are 3, we will explore the versatility of the mode by applying, say, for example, over a 2-5, a minor 2-5-1, but also to more modern progressions highlighted above, and all derived from the harmonization of the vertical structure. Following the PDF, of course, you have, as usual, the transposed in all key, the Phrygian dominant scales. Here are 5 shapes. Obviously, like this is in G, you'll have to transpose it in all other keys. Followed by the arpeggio. In this case, is dominant 7 arpeggios. Followed by the modal arpeggio. So it contains, 9, 11, flat 13, etc. This is followed by the chords, and this is interesting because now we have dominant 7 chords, but they represent some alterations. Let's call them this way. In this case, they don't really are. I'll get back to that in a second. But as you can see, beside the normal dominant 7, you have a dominant 7 sharp 5, which is the same as the flat 6, or a dominant 7 with a flat 9. So when we did the mixolydian mode, so the 5th degree of the major modes, we came across the fact that the mixolydian mode is basically applies to dominant 7 chords, because the scale went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, and then root note, and it contained 1, 3, 5, flat 7, which means dominant. And if we look at the extension, so if we look at the upper structure of this particular scale, beside 1, 3, 5, flat 7, we also have 2, 4, and 6 in the scale. And once we move them in the upper octave, we start calling them 9, 11, and 13, which meant that when we were constructing chords of the mixolydian mode, of course, we would have dominant 7, but we'd also have dominant 9, so like, say, G9. We could build the G11, we could build the G13, all sorts of extra colors adapted to the dominant chord. The same is applying in the case of Phrygian dominant, with the only difference that the scale is different, and the scale contains, beside 1, 3, 5, flat 7, this time it contains a flat 2, a 4, and a flat 6. Generally, in the universe of jazz, when we think of these extensions in terms of alterations at times, instead of calling it, for example, a flat 6, we tend to call it a sharp 5. So in this case, we will be building a chord called, say, G7 sharp 5. And in this case, for example, the sharp 5, there is one sharp 5 here, and this is G7 sharp 5. Or the flat 9, for example, there is a flat 9 here. We don't call it a flat 2. So in this case, you would have a G7 sharp 5 flat 9. Now, is this an alteration? Well, it's an alteration if we compare it to mixolydian, because these are no notes, the sharp 5 and flat 9, not contained in the mixolydian mode. So if we were superimposing this scale, which we will do in the future, say we have a major 2-5-1, so for example, D minor, G major, C major. And of course, this is all basically key of C. And if I was to play mixolydian over G, well, I'm not alterating by no means when I'm playing a solo. But if I was to superimpose the Phrygian dominant instead that the mixolydian, then I would add 2 alterations, the sharp 5 and the flat 9. And in jazz, you hear this a lot, maybe like, in rock, metal, maybe not really, but in jazz, definitely. I'll play it to you. This is a normal mixolydian sound. No alterations at all. Instead, like when it comes to G, I'll play Phrygian dominant instead. And of course, you had 2 alterations. Now I'll play them even harder. Now, in the context of harmonic minor instead, so like a minor 2-5-1, they're not alterations anymore, because if I play D half diminished, G7 going into C minor, so a minor 251. The sharp 5 and the flat 9 actually belong, they're the right scale for that kind of progression. So they're not really alterations. But in terms of chords, yeah, in this case, in the minor 251, the way we would extend the chords in terms of embellishing the simple dominant 7 would be dominant 7 sharp 5, dominant 7 flat 9, or any combination of the above. And also, obviously, there is also an 11. As a matter of fact, when we looked at the chords in group of 4, like we did before, we also find out that maybe like a B diminished is in there, A flat major is in there, so that leaves also space, an open space to chord substitutions. But again, we'll look at that in the future. But the point I'm making here is when you study the chords, and obviously the chords are across all 5 cages, you'll notice a lot of voicings, which are other chord substitutions in a way. You'll be familiar with some of the shapes. For example, this one. This is like a major 7 type of shape. But as you can see from a G perspective, this is a flat 9, 11, sharp 5, and root note. So we're still in the realm of this being played instead of a G7. Why is the Phrygian dominant an important mode, and why it comes with 3 backing tracks? Well, because it's a very versatile scale. There is 3 backing tracks that comes with this particular PDF and with this lesson, and they're across 3 different styles, just to make the point of this is not a scale that only jazz players adopt. Of the harmonic minor modes, surely the first mode, literally harmonic minor, is broadly used across a variety of genre, and Phrygian dominant the same. Checking, if you're into shredding, checking with Malmsteen, and you'll hear a lot of Phrygian dominant as an harmonic minor employed in, rock, metal, but not only, as I said, like flamenco employs it a lot. Obviously, some classical music. It's got a very interesting sound, which kind of moves out of the boundary set by jazz and fusion. So make sure you pay particular attention to the scales and learn the fingerings. If you've done harmonic minor, the scale itself should come easy because we're just displacing it. Obviously, like the arpeggio, the modular arpeggio, and the study of the chords will be new to you. And after that, just literally use the backing tracks as a way to find the musicality around it. I'll play a little bit of the backing track, maybe a little bit. I'll probably mesh up all 3, so this is not too long. So again, you get to hear it a bit, but most importantly, make sure you first do the work in terms of chords and arpeggios and scales, and then you move on, you move forward. In the future, we're going to come back to this scale when we'll dig deeper into the minor 251. But for now, this should be more enough, and this is fun to practice in terms of playing it. Okay, that's it. Enjoy the lesson, enjoy the tracks, and until next time, bye.